Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to DiscussionVerse. Today we're riding back into the world of Game of Thrones and Westeros, but not for dragons, not for throne room betrayals, and not for White Walkers. This is for A Knight of Seven Kingdoms, and we're talking about hedge knights, honor, and the kind of story that reminds you why we fell in love with this world in the first place. Now, before we swear our knighthood to the realm, do me a quick favor. Don't just sit there like a lord at the tournament. Go ahead and hit that like button like it's the trial by 7, then pledge your sword to the channel by hitting subscribe. With that out of the way, let's get right into this. Going into A Knight of Seven Kingdoms, I'll be honest, I didn't know how this was going to land. As we've had the spectacle of Game of Thrones, we had the dragon-fueled political implosion of House of the Dragon, which is still ongoing. Game of Thrones didn't have the greatest ending to the series. While House of the Dragon has been a solid show overall, there have also been some boiling criticism for that series akin to Game of Thrones in its later seasons. But after these 6 episodes in the first season for A Knight of Seven Kingdoms, what has surprised me the most is the emotional groundedness of this story, which is set in the Game of Thrones universe, especially when it's not a show about who sits in the Iron Throne. The show itself takes place roughly 90 years before Game of Thrones and decades after the Dance of Dragons. The Targaryens are still in power, but the dragons are gone. We've been conditioned by Game of Thrones to expect scale, betrayal, spectacle, shocking deaths. Then House of the Dragon doubled down on more political tension and dragon warfare. The show immediately leaves all that behind and picks up with a hedge knight burying his master. That immediately told me that this show was going to be entirely different from anything we had before. In this, we meet Duncan the Tall at his lowest point, as Sir Alan of Penetry is now gone. This was his master and the man who pulled him out of Flea Bottom and gave him a sense of purpose in seeking knighthood. And instead of epic music and grandeur, we get grief, silence, and uncertainty. And I genuinely love that choice. And that grounds us right away, as it's something truly human, and Dunk isn't just chasing destiny, he's chasing survival, and he's carrying a title that he's not even sure he earned. And when he heads to Ashford Meadow hoping to compete in the local tourney that he hears about, you can feel that mix of confidence and insecurity. He believes in what Sir Alan saw in him, but the world doesn't. And that's not even by choice, it's just that the world might not even know of him or his master, really. And that is definitely a reoccurring thing, especially as we watch him try to secure backing from knights and nobles, which honestly hit harder than any sword fight, because this is Westeros stripped of dragons. Reputation is the currency and bloodline is leverage, and Dunk has neither. Even when he meets Sir Lionel Baratheon, the Laughing Storm, there's warmth there, but not full commitment in being vouched for. And that moment really stood out to me. It shows how even good men hesitate when their name is probably on the line. But at least he starts a friendship with Lionel and also meets a fellow squire named Raymond who he befriends. And of course, we then have Egg, and at first he's just this stubborn bald kid who won't stop following Dunk. And I remember thinking, there's more to this kid, because the confidence, the education, and the way that he carried himself in the show, it didn't match that of a common squire or even a common stable boy that he was claiming to be. But what I appreciated is that before the reveal, the bond already feels genuine between Sir Duncan and Egg, as Egg chooses Dunk before we know why that choice is significant. We continue in Dunk's journey at Ashford with him witnessing local jousting and also still trying to secure someone to vouch for him to no avail. And then Aerion Targaryen enters the picture, and this is where the season sharpens, because Aerion isn't just the series villain, he's a reminder of what unchecked power looks like, especially in Westeros. We see this from his first encounter in meeting Dunk and assuming he was nothing more than a stable boy or peasant to serve him, to watching him kill a horse during a joust, which is certainly not honorable whatsoever, and even watching him break a puppeteer's fingers. A knight does not prey upon the innocent. And while it's masterfully done, it does make viewers uncomfortable, though we see as Egg alerts Dunk to him attacking an innocent puppeteer. And that's a great moment in it of itself, as we watch Duncan beat down Aerion and actually give him a taste of his own medicine. And that's a very important moment when he steps in, as he's not thinking about any politics nor calculating any consequences. He's just stepping in because it's the right thing to do. And that's the moment that he became a true knight to me. It's not when he wears armor or when someone addresses him as sir, it's when he chooses to protect innocent people with everything to lose. And the immediately fallout is brutal. He's arrested right on the spot and almost nearly executed and punished, but then Egg steps in and reveals himself as Aegon Targaryen. And this power shift is immediate, and the twist works not just because it's shocking, but because it reframes everything. Egg wasn't tagging along just for adventure, he was observing, learning, and testing the world outside of the castle walls. We later learn he hid his identity to become a squire after his brother Daeron Targaryen, the belligerent drunk noble from the inn, refused to participate in the tournament. Duncan then overcomes that betrayal that was felt and speaks with Sir Baelor Targaryen, heir apparent to the Iron Throne. We then witness Baelor agreeing in Duncan's action in stopping Aerion and attacking him, but then reveals that he will still demand a trial by combat as that is Aerion's right. While Duncan rises to the challenge, Aerion cheekily avoids this direct 1v1 by demanding a trial by 7 to the shock and frustration of others' presence. This demands that Aerion and 6 other knights battle against Duncan and 6 other knights. And man, the trial by 7 is easily the emotional peak of the season. And what makes it powerful isn't just the spectacle itself, it's the loneliness leading up to it, as Dunk has no house to call on, no army, no banners. It's a moment of uncertainty, but not all hope is lost. As we see as Raymond joins, as well as Sir Lionel himself, then we see Sir Humphrey Beesbury join, Sir Humphrey Harding join, whose horse was earlier killed by Aerion in the joust. Also joining Duncan is Sir Robin the Maddest Knight Risling, and at the very last minute, Baelor Breakspear Targaryen himself steps in to Duncan's side. It's such a powerful moment that hits really hard because Baelor did not need to do that whatsoever. As heir apparent under King Daeron II, he had everything to lose, but he sees something in Duncan that the system and other nobles refuse to acknowledge. He recognizes a true knight, someone who swore in the name of the warrior and was charged to be brave, who swore to the father and was charged to be just, who swore to the mother and was charged to defend the innocent. A true knight of the 7 kingdoms. And the battle itself is supremely chaotic, brutal, and intercut with Duncan's childhood in Flea Bottom, and I thought that was such a strong storytelling choice, and it absolutely catches you off guard when you're watching this episode. Seeing a young Duncan and his friend Rafe steal from corpses in order to just get by and sell things, then him losing his childhood friend Rafe to corrupt guards in the city, it really paints a picture of who Duncan really is and why he wants to do right by others, which of course stems from him losing his childhood friend Rafe as she is murdered right in front of his eyes. And as Duncan tries to attack the perpetrator, he almost loses his own life but is saved by Sir Alan of Penetry, who steps in at the most opportune time and slays both guards in the name of the mother and protecting the innocent. In this context adds so much weight to the present fight, especially as we see Alan offer a young Dunk water and telling him to get up, which transitions us back to the ongoing combat in this episode. It immediately becomes more than just survival at this point. Duncan emerges victorious with Aerion withdrawing his accusation against Duncan, and for a brief moment it feels like justice has been served and earned. As Duncan and the others recuperate with him learning that other knights have died, Baelor Targaryen arrives to speak with him. Duncan pledges his allegiance and sword to Baelor, and Baelor tells him that the realm needs good men, as does he. And just as he gets Raymond and also the blacksmith Steely Pate to take off his helmet, a horrible truth is revealed. That reveal is that the back of Baelor's head is crushed with a hole in his skull, and the sudden dread starts to set in as he collapses into Duncan's arms, and we see as the life just leave him completely. It's absolutely devastating because Baelor represented what the Targaryen dynasty could have been at its best: measured, compassionate, and just. And in classic Game of Thrones Westeros fashion, the good ones pay the ultimate price. The final episode really slows things down and lets the lost breathe. Maekar Targaryen steps forward as heir apparent. He's colder, more rigid, and he's Aegon's father. He exiles Aerion to the free cities, acknowledging his cruelty and hoping that can help change him for the better. But you can see the dysfunction in that family with the resentment, the pressure, and of course, the bad seeds. And what I found really interesting is that Maekar recognizes that Egg needs Dunk. Not tutors, not courtly lessons, but perspective and a true knight. Dunk initially refuses because he still doesn't see himself as worthy, which is a consistent thread throughout the show. Even after surviving a trial by 7, he still doubts himself. This initially puts him at odds with Egg, but upon thinking on it further, he asks Maekar if he can take Egg on as his squire, but on the road instead of settling in a city or area, to which the father refuses Duncan. We then see as Duncan begins to part ways and says goodbye to Raymond, but Egg appears and tells him that his father changed his mind and agreed to him becoming a squire for Sir Duncan the Tall. though that is quickly revealed to be a lie as we see his father frantically find out that his son is actually gone. That final sequence sets up season 2 perfectly, and we get Egg lying again, running off to join Dunk, and the two riding towards Dorne. It's hopeful and it's perfectly rebellious at the same time. And knowing that Egg eventually becomes king and lord of the Seven Kingdoms later on adds so much more weight to what this season ends with, and that is a powerful friendship formed between Aegon and Sir Duncan the Tall. Overall, season 1 surprised me a lot. It's smaller in scale, quieter, but emotionally richer than I expected. It strips Westeros down to its bones and asks a simple question: what makes a knight? And at that, what makes a true knight? Sir Duncan the Tall answers that question over and over again throughout the series, and not with speeches or just ambition, but with pure action. And in a world where honor usually gets you killed, this time it's forged as a legend. And that being said, this does wrap up my thoughts on A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms season 1, and I kind of expressed how I genuinely enjoyed this show and the first season overall, and I'm very excited to see where Duncan and Egg's journey takes us next. If you enjoyed this video and breakdown, go ahead and show some honor by smashing that like button, and don't pull a Foss away and be a chump. Lastly, don't forget to swear knighthood to the channel by hitting subscribe. And of course, I will see all of you guys on the next video. Peace!